Today we're going to make these cute little butterfly springtime decor. Hi, my name is Myra with Boutique Paint. Thank you for joining me. We're going to start out with a manila file folder, and I'm going to cut it in half right on the seam just so it's a little easier to work with. Next, what you're going to want is some tissue paper. And I picked out these two, basically cutting them into small pieces. And I'm going to be using the butterfly stamp also from IOD. So I'll pull that out so I know what size I'm going to need. The big guy here. So I'll set the rest of that aside. So I think I want to use the big one with this particular tissue. I'm just going to kind of get a feel of where I may want to put him. I think I want a little bit more of the pink flower there. So I'm going to cut out around. And then I want one for the back. So I think I'll just come down here. For this one, I will use this butterfly. So now, to kind of get a feel for where I'm going to do the butterfly, I think what I'll do is I'll go ahead and not cut it big enough that the writing's on, but just you're wanting a general shape idea. And just cut out a shape. So we'll set our stamps aside for a moment, and we're going to take a little bit of Mod Podge, and I'm going to go ahead and put it on a plate so it's easy to use, and grab a paintbrush here, and I'm going to put a pretty generous amount of Mod Podge on the paper. And don't worry about any folds or little imperfections. It's all good. Flip it over, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. All right, we'll set that aside, let it dry. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and grab this one back, and I'm going to go over the top. But this time I'm going to add just a little bit of water into the Mod Podge. Stir it around on there. And you don't have to use a file folder. You could use not cardstock, but the poster board from like the dollar store. That would work also. I kind of like the idea of the the file folder because of the color. I thought it would help to kind of give it an antique feel. You could also use the colored, antique vintage colored Mod Podge. So I'm going to just set that aside. We're only going to do one side at a time because you got to let it dry. So now that that side is dry, the other side's dry, I'm going to go ahead and get some Mod Podge on the back side. So next you want to grab your stamp, whatever stamp you're using, and whatever choice of ink you want to use. We're going to start by inking up our stamp. Let's see how we're doing. Oh yeah, that's very pretty. I had a question about the stamps not sticking to the backing, the backer sheet that these come on, or these. If this is happening, then clean off the back. You can use a baby wipe, or you can wash the back with some dish soap and just wash it off. Let it dry with the face of it down so that this dries, and then it should start working again. So from there, I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. And it is very kind of light. You can't really see the black super well too. And I guess that's one of the problems when you're stamping on a pattern. But you could always test whatever ink you were going to want to do before you stamp it on just a scrap piece of the tissue paper. And if you don't like it, you can always go over it with a second color. That's the nice thing about using the clear sheets of plastic, as you can see where you're stamping. So I'm going to kind of go on the outside of the little tentacles. They're a little fragile, so I don't want them to come off or tear off. And if you're afraid that this isn't going to be sturdy enough for whatever you're going to use it for, this is more of a kind of a paper craft, but you could do 2 sheets of whatever your backing is and then glue them together, and that would give you a sturdier base. The other reason why to cut these a little wider is we're going to stamp the back, and because these are not each side is not identical, this gives us some wiggle room as far as the stamping part of it. Now this side will probably stamp much better with the black. You'll see it better. And like I said, you never know which side you're gonna like the best. Okay, so now we're gonna ink the back of this one. And if it doesn't match up exact with what you cut out, that's okay. We're not going to worry about that. Just kind of hover over the top. Get a general positioning. It looks like it's going to line up pretty well. Now with the IOD inks, you do want them to dry too before you move on to the other process on this as far as stringing it. Because the IOD inks do take a little bit longer to dry also. So just give it a little bit of time. Oh, that turned out so pretty. Look at how gorgeous that is. Oh my goodness. That turned out better than I expected. So I wanted to show you my boo-boo so you can learn from it. I stamped it with the gold, and I didn't care for the gold because, and this is a perfect way to show you, the stamp I used had way too much stamp area. You can see by the impression here. What we want is something that's a little bit more open, like this one and this one. This is the one I used here, and it turned out beautiful. And so I thought if I stamped the black, it probably wouldn't show up quite as much because of the tissue paper being so dark. So I thought, okay, I'm going to pivot and I'm going to stamp on this side and then emboss it. And all it did was make kind of a jelly mess. So that didn't work so well either. And also when I heated it up, because I had cheated and went ahead and moved forward without letting this whole thing dry completely, I got bubbling. So we're going to try again. We're going to use this stamp here, which is the one I wanted to use originally. I found it. And because I use it so much, I have a little stash of stamps that I use all the time. And this is one of them. My new sheet is dry and ready to go. So this time around, I'm going to use the mixing white. And I already inked it up, but I'll do a fresh coat here, because I think this is going to show up better on the dark tissue. And mixing white isn't like a real true white. It's kind of, because it's designed to mix with other colors to make other colors, It's kind of a little bit, it's a little bit of a light white. But I think it will work well for what we want. Oh yeah, that's much better. Look at that, that's so pretty. Okay, so we'll get this cut out once again. Get it dry, flip it. And then that way we can move on to giving her a little bit of fun embellishment. So next we want to put a few ribbons or whatever you feel like you want to do to embellish it. I'm going to use this as a hanging piece. So I will put a loop in the back here and decide which side you like best. I mean, both of them are beautiful. This one kind of reminds me of a watercolor. This one is got a little bit more detail. I think I will use this side. And I'm going to just cut a piece of ribbon. And I'm going to flip this over and glue this to the back side. I'm going to use hot glue here. Just cut a bunch of these little strips. This was doubled. And you want them just whatever lengths. It might be cute to even, you know, figure out how to put a bead, put this through a bead and then have it hanging down below or something. Or you could do a tassel. And I may have to, I just kind of wadded this up. I'm hoping it'll all stay together. I may have to add a little bit more glue. It feels like it's coming through it. I pulled out some of my molds that were already made and kind of played with that as far as putting something in the center. And I found this, and even though this looks more kind of like a dragonfly tail, I thought it would be kind of cool just to put it right there. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this the length of what I want. So I'm going to cut it right there. And I'm going to use wire cutters because this is made with resin. You can see it was easy to cut though. And then I'm just going to paint it pink to kind of pull out the pink from there. So while we're letting that dry, we'll get the glue gun turned back on. I went ahead and braided. I have this little twine and it's got a little bit of iridescent in it. But it wasn't really thick enough to really do anything. So I braided a piece and then I cut 6 strands, doubled them, and I'm going to attempt to shove it through this bead. We'll see how I do. I got a toothpick out to hopefully get me started. And I'm just trying to twist those together so maybe they'll go through together. I'm not sure this is going to work. I was thinking the other thing I could do is I could drill out the bead hole a little bit bigger. So I got it started. Now I'm going to take a toothpick and kind of try to help me get that through. It looks like it's working. Some of them are coming through. Let's see if they all work. There we go. That worked out pretty slick. So I'm just going to leave this like this, and that's the part I'm going to glue on the back. And then I'm going to tie a knot here so the bead doesn't slide down. Do that, and then we're going to cut this off, the extra, because we don't need it this long. I think I'm going to do kind of a angled cut. And then here, to get these in, I'm going to punch a hole in the corners. And I've got a small hole punch for this. And then I'm going to take my braided twine. There we go. Now I've got a knot there already that I put in after I braided it just to keep it in place. And I'm going to double up on that knot. I may have to triple up just to hold it in place. Oh, that should be good. All right. And then decide how long you want this. That looks pretty good there. So I'm going to pull my string in a little bit and I'll double knot. And then I'll cut the extra off. Trim those little guys. Now I'm going to get my glue gun and we're just going to do a little dab of glue here. I'm going to twist these strings again just so that they'll lay kind of flat there. But there's that one. Pretty cute. This should be dry now, so we'll add it. So that is our project for today. Thank you for joining me. If you have any questions, you can go to our website at www.boutiquepaint.com. Bye.